Okay, we're going to take a look at the final piece of the time data entry, and that is the uploads. There are two things that we can do here. We can look at the actual status of the devices that are doing the uploads, and then look at the data themselves. Now, right off the bat, notice that we have this notation here for fresh, and also here in the uploads, we are noted that we have 4 fresh uploads. So there's plenty of uploads in the system. The freshness is the new recent uploads that have not yet been imported into any particular controls. So let's take a look at the uploading data, the information that comes up here. So this is, these are sorted by newest to oldest. And so just 4 minutes ago, I uploaded a couple pieces of test data. So number one, note that the code for all of these is NRS. Those are our official devices. There are other devices out there in the world. Test and not set are very common for Android users around the world that are using the application. But NRS is our official code. And for our official devices, we actually know what those devices are. And this matches up with the inventory when we hand everything out. This one also happens to be my phone, and we know which one that is. So the count, this tells us how many pieces of data. So for example, in this one, there are just 3 splits, 21, 34, and 45. So that tells us how many we are looking at. Generally, this will be the entire field. And earliest and latest tells us when did this data start and finish. So let's look right here. We're at 2235 to 2237. So if we look at this, you're seeing that it goes from 2235 to 2237. This really helps you if you're trying to figure out if you're looking at an arrival control versus the same stage maybe that has done a turnaround or is running for a second time, and you're trying to figure out, is this maybe incorrect? Did it come from stage 6, which is a repeat? These earliest and latest help you do that. So now we also have this code right here as we go along. So what this does, and we'll take a look at where this comes from on the actual NUC devices in a little bit. So this is day 1, stage start 4, and this is day 1, stage arrival 1. Now this is the default. This is what the program comes up, as default. So if you see this, maybe be a little skeptical. The guys in the 0 cars should be checking these as they go so that they're set properly. So, and then we have imported. None of these have been imported anywhere yet. So, and this one also says, note that this also says stage arrival 4. Now it's probable, and since I put in the data I know, that we aren't looking at all arrivals. One of these is a finish. So if we happen to look at this one, we can see, that this actually was finish data. They all have seconds here. And also, the mode the clock is actually recording in, it was on the finish screen when it was doing this. So let's take a look at some of the others here. We can see that if we look at this one, it was in the starting mode. So pretty good odds that this actually is a start. We see sequential numbers. We see there's 60 seconds difference between the two. The pieces that are grayed out, this is the stuff that is the same from one to the next. So it's sort of like looking at, you don't need to pay a lot of attention to that. And this diff raw right here, that is the difference between the intended time, which is we started these people at 22:35, and the raw time, which was when the button was actually pressed. So in this case, quite understandably, they pressed the button to start at 17 seconds after 34, and then had, roughly a 38-second countdown to get to 22:35. So for every upload that you get, you're going to get the raw time, which was the time that you actually pressed the button, and the intended time. So for arrivals and starts, that will be either the previous minute or the next minute. But if we're looking at finishes, the intended time and the actual time that you press the button, those two things are the same. I mean, you intended the time that they finished. So coming back here, part of what we're looking at is we have 3 pieces of data to make sure that we're actually putting this information in the right spot. So number 1, we have the location. So this is actually typed out on the Nook. We'll take a look at this in a little bit. So the guys that are doing the uploads are typing this by hand. Then we have this code, and this should be set and it gets recorded with each piece of data. Now notice that it's possible to actually have 2 different pieces in one upload. Imagine that a clock is reused at a turnaround or is used for 2 stages sequentially. So that's also possible, and you may import half of it to one place and half of it to another place. So you have this location that's typed in, you have this location code that is set in the software, and then finally you have this mode, and between those 3 things we can anticipate being pretty sure that we are actually putting this data in the right place.
Alright, we're going to take a look at the Nook clock, not really for the whole operation of it, but just to look at where the import pieces of data that we are interested in come from. So we have 3 modes: arrival, starts, and finishes. Now in each of these modes the clock works a little bit differently. In here we are capturing this 9:42. It's 1 minute back, but if we're doing a stage start, we're going to be capturing the next minute forward. We're counting down to the top here, this 9:43. So, and in the finish mode, we're actually grabbing the time as it exists right away. So if we capture finish time, it's right now 9:43. So notice right here in this 9:43 we have this 91SS6. So this is actually, this is our abbreviation code. We can see it in this log view right here, and this comes from this location button right here. So normally these 0 cars, we'll be setting these to make sure they're correct. So if we set this, we can see that this is start of a special stage, rally day 1, stage 6 of the entire rally. So if we said that we were actually doing say a rally finish of the day, and back here we would say this changes to D1 RF, day 1 rally finish. So there's only really a few combinations here, and it's pretty easy to get used to what the combinations mean. So this is day 1 stage start 6, and so this piece of data, if we look at the log, this actually gets recorded with each piece of data independently. So if we change this to day 1, let's say we actually set it to the finish of the special stage, and then we'll go and capture a finish time, and boom, right there we see we have the day 1 stage finish 6. So it's not that all of these get set to this on the upload, it's each piece of data. So it's possible that when you get the upload log, that you will have, here's day 1 stage finish 6, day 1 stage start 6. You could have multiple different controls in here, or multiple stages. That's certainly possible. But in each of these, the mode, finish, starts, and arrivals is recorded. So if we look again at this log, and this is the same data you'll have in the upload, these 2 were recorded in the finish mode, and these were all recorded in the starting mode. So the mode is absolutely reliable, since it comes from the function of the clock. The code should be reliable, although sometimes if there's a hurry it doesn't get set. So those are 2 pieces of data, is the mode and the location code. And so the last piece is, if we go and do an upload, and that is done down here, when the upload happens, and this is usually done by the sweep car, they should actually be typing in the location of where they're going. Oops, we're not at stage 6 fin. Maybe they were uploading these from the finish. So this is the description that you get, and that is set by the person that is doing the upload. They should know where they're doing it, and not connected, so I can't do the upload now. But so those are where the 3 pieces of information come from, and each of them is slightly different in their reliability.
So now that we have this piece, let's see if we actually go about importing it. So we have a known MAC. We know where this came from. Here is the upload time, and this is what they told us it was during start. We have several things we can do here. Let's jump back just a moment and take a look at one that has maybe a little bit of junk in it. So in this one we have 2 scores that are in the 700. We instruct our volunteers to, if they want to do some practice, some testing, use the 700 numbers and do anything you want, and our scores will know to discard them. So what we can do is we can select these 2 and then just mark them as junk. So that gets us some frowny faces, which means no matter what we do with the rest of this, these 2 pieces won't be operated on. We could also clear the junk mark and say, oh, we needed to use that data. So we have that very handy. So we can also just view the data for cut and paste. We won't really need this inside our system. It just says it's going to take this intended data and the time and show it here. And we can cut and paste this, copy it to somewhere else if we needed to do an export. So that will be a rarely used function. So now that we have this, we want to look at this interesting column here, this MSB. This is multi-select below. What this does is just clicking anywhere here selects multiply everything at it and below it. So if I click here, it does all the way down, and then if I unclick, it does the same thing. So what I can do is when I have 50, 80 times that I need to import, I can say these, if I want to say start here, and then I can actually do click, unclick, and clear a bunch. So this lets you, in just a couple clicks, it saves you from 60 clicks to select everything that you need here. So with these, if I say that I want to import these to control, now notice I have got this 700 actually sitting here. So if I say import these to a control, and actually, let me switch to a different rally before I do this. Okay, so let's say I'm going to import this data, and note that I do have the selector mark here, but it's going to be ignored just because we've got it set as junk. So I'm going to import it to a control here in our test data, the 2000 Black River stages. So what I'm looking at here is, it tells me I've selected 4 times, 1 will be discarded, and then of all of the available controls, it's telling me how many times are already there. So if we imagine that we are looking at the finish times for stage 4, right now it's blank, that's good. And if it's a stage finish, it's bolded here just to give us a reminder. So here's SS4, and we will import these times. So we can notice here that these are now all tagged as being imported to SS4. Nothing's changed over here. We can still see all the data. Now notice that we do have this D1 stage arrival 1. It was just set incorrectly, but we can tell from the upload here and the mode that it really was stage 4 finish. And then what we probably also do is look at in the upload list that these times here looked like they were part of stage 4. So between all of that, and now we've noticed that we have, it has checked here and it says, I'm importing these to SS4, that one's taken care of. So the same thing here, this SS4 start, if we wanted to do this, we could do a multi-select, grab them all, import them. And now this is telling us we already have some data here. Okay, we can add to it, or go back to it. So we import those 3 times. So that's for and they've all been marked as imported to TC4S. If we go to the logs, we can see here that TC4S now has 5, and because these numbers don't happen to be in our system, we have some interesting numbers. But there they are, the 21, 34, 45. So all of that stuff goes in correctly. So there's the import to control, the most likely used, and where it's imported to, marked on each piece of data that we send, and also it's marked in here sort of globally. This says here are all the places this data has been put into. And then we have, notice that if we look here, our uploads, we no longer have any fresh ones. It's because we've handled these. They've been imported. At least the latest one has been imported. So now that these have been uploaded, let's also take a look at the device status. So this tells us for each device what is going on with them. So this says here's the one that sent this upload. Now this isn't live. We can't ping each device. We only find out what's happening as they're uploading. So it says here's where the data has come to, what it is using. Most importantly, we're looking at what version of the software it's using. And everything is relatively up to date. Anything that's over 4.2 is all using the new stuff. The calibration, this is anything that's using a time that is offset from the device time. In these cases, we usually set the time on the device, and most of these will be 0. If there's something here and the times look wacky, you'll want to take that into account. The server time delta, this is the difference between when the device thinks it's uploading and when the server thinks it's receiving. So ideally, the difference between these two should be, about a second. But if it is, minutes or something, then there may be a configuration problem, but it might connect here. So basically, these two pieces will let you know if there's something weird going on with a particular clock. And finally, we have the actual battery charge status of the device. In this case, this NUC NRS40 is at it's charging. You can see it gained 3% in the 4 minutes, and it's charging up. And my phone is at 77%. So conceivably, you could say, oh, here's a battery that is very low, and maybe get on NetControl and say, hey, tell the guys out at stage 2 to charge up their device or swap it out for a spare. So that gives you some information there about the actual devices in the field. And mainly, this calibration issue and the version number is the most important stuff that you'll look at. And really, it's sort of just a check a few times during the rally as you go. So that is uploading, and that's actually just getting the stuff in. And note that the new uploads that we have, they aren't showing here under version 1. That's because version 1 it's not the software here on the server. Version 1 is talking about the upload protocol being used by the devices. So we shouldn't see anything here. And eventually, this version 1 will probably disappear from the usage stuff here. In general, you'll be having a lot of these logs open as you go. And you can here, again, we were doing stage 4, you can mark these complete. Remember, this page, it is just for your own use and doesn't affect anything else in the program. So you can do this as you go if you like. It's up to you. But you'll be working with the uploads and all of these logs fairly closely to make sure that they are working together. And that is an overview of the uploads